Biblical Prosperity Friday. Today's lesson is Proverbs 11. I don't know if any one of us here has any information regarding the election in the United States. I know Malaysia just had an election, and in the little state that I was from, there were reports of election fraud, people buying votes, people paying the natives not to go to vote so as not to support the opposition party. And even in the United States, we hear of the Somali community in Minneapolis, of a certain congresswoman from Somalia sending out her people to buy votes, to pay for ballots. We have two kinds. You can vote in person. Okay, you can have a ballot mailed to you. If you can't go to the polls, you just pop it into the mailbox, and people do come around and buy those and said, give it to me, and then fill it themselves for whomever candidate they vote for. Could go up to $200 a ballot or more. And this guy was caught in driving around doing that. And he said, look, in my car, in the back seat of my car, I look at all the ballots. I have 300 of them. And more in this world, we thought we left that behind when we left our third world country that we live in, but instead we import it here because the stakes are so high. And as Christians, we yearn for that righteousness of God. We yearn for the punishment to be on the wicked, even now, and not to wait till the next life. We feel the injustice, and rightly so, because we are made in the image of God, and justice, one of the attributes of our Lord and of our God. And then that's why we feel in our lives the need for justice. And throughout Proverbs, it speaks of righteousness, that the righteous will be saved, that God will not see any of the righteous go hungry. But more than that, we demand righteousness, we demand justice in the public square, in elections, in voting for our elected officials, in our lives. If we go before a magistrate, we want that kind of justice. It's always in us, and we wonder where that comes from. It comes from our God, and that's why we fight against injustice in this world, in the place where we live in. And throughout Proverbs, it speaks of that, and I like to read Proverbs. Sometimes you feel that you cry out to God and say, Lord, help me. You are a just God. Let's hear my prayer. And I think we should be confident that he does hear prayers, because somewhere it says, be careful you do not harm another person, because he might pray to God and God might listen to his prayers and answer it. So I'm always motivated by that, always judging my own thoughts and my own deeds, my own speech, to be sure that I follow this. And again, in Proverbs 11, we can never get away from it. Why should we get away from it? We should always be reminded of the need to be like God said, be ye perfect as I am perfect, meaning that we are required to be different from the world. It's not like, a little better. No, completely and totally. Verse 1, a false balance is abomination to the Lord. Not just are you cheating your own fellow man, God sees them. And, if he prays to God and said, Lord, I need justice, what will happen to you if you've cheated? But a just weight is his delight. So the Lord sees you, sees your just deeds, sees your honesty, and he delights in it. And if we read the word, our understanding of these words are so abstract. So when we read delight, we don't really feel much. But in the Hebrew, I think I read somewhere that it means, what is delight? It means to spin around. Means in a dance, when your partner spin you around, that's delight. And God delights in you and delights your righteous deeds. And he twirls you around. Isn't that a wonderful image? Verse 2, when pride cometh, then cometh shame. But the lowly is wisdom. So that, this again is a Hebraic way of writing literature, Solomonic, where he compares one act with another act, pride. And then lowly, a humble person, the contrast there. And then verse 5, the wicked shall fall by his own wickedness. The righteousness of the upright shall deliver them. So wickedness and righteousness, the comparison. What is the fate of the wicked? What is the fate of the righteous? And verse 22, I'm not going to read the whole chapter. It's too long to, I don't have enough time, less than 15 minutes for each post. You can always read it, and you should. You must read it once, twice, 3 times. Pick out the favorite verses, hide it in your mind, in your heart, to live it. And when you get on your knees, to pray it. God is faithful to his word to perform it. Always believe that. So it says here, Lord, you said so. And I stand on your word. And I hold you responsible to your word. And you are worthy. And I know that you will perform what you said you will. And here, verse 22, as a jewel of gold in a swine's snout. If you look at pigs, they're snorting in the dirt and the grime. What's the use of putting a jewel on him, a tiara or something? It's wasted. But the desire of the righteous also, so a fair woman is a fair woman without discretion. Just like people who are stupid, who has no discretion, no pride, no shame. So it's like putting a crown, a tiara on a pig's nose, a pig's snout. But the desire of the righteous is only good. That means it has a lot of imagery here that helps us to remember, always remember the pig, a tiara, a jewel on the pig's snout. What good is there? But a righteous woman, her righteousness is her crown, is her crowning glory. God sees it. See, we are not close enough to God. We don't abide with him, and he abides with us, so that we remember these verses and hold it in our hearts, to remember it, to live it, and therefore to reap the benefits of it. Verse 24, this is another of my favorite verse. There is that scattereth and yet increases, and there is that withholdeth more than is meet, attendant to poverty. This is kind of a hard way of saying it. That means there is a person who is generous, always scattering his wealth around, but there's no lack in his life, in the sense that you give away so much, but that you don't have. It's not like you will empty yourself. But there are people who hoards. It's like not giving a penny to anyone, and yet they find that their lives is poor, that they have nothing more, even though they hoard so much. So it means that when we give, understand that there is a godly principle there, that you will not lack anything. Give, Jesus said, and it shall be given back to you, pressed down and flowing over. Imagine you have a vessel pressed down so much that you can only contain so much, but you press it down so that it contains more and flowing over. That is what we should have. It should always be generous. And the fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he that winneth souls is wise. And so much wisdom here. We can only take in one thing at a time, but whatever little we can, we should hide in our heart. And I have a little clip of the 4 walls that I work in, and I taped it a few months ago, but I'll connect it with this video. Enjoy.